another, and I got a great guest. Just took on a major new role for one of the most influential media companies out there right now, Revolt. Please welcome to the show, Detavio Samuels, the new CEO of Revolt. Man, thanks for coming on the show,
Hey,
especially on short notice, man.
thank you. Thank you for having me, King. How you holding up?
I am doing great given everything that's going on, man. I got nothing to complain
Yeah,
about.
good,
Hopefully
same.
we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel from the year that we just had. We want to talk a little bit about that in terms of what it means for your business and for you
Okay.
personally. But yeah, I'm in a good space, man. How about you?
Good, same, man. I tell everybody I'm happy, healthy, and blessed. And in 2020 and 2021, that's all you can ask for, right? So just grateful.
Yeah, if we got nothing else out of the past year, I'm hoping, and I know it's true for me, I got a
Mhm.
new appreciation for just not taking things for granted, for
That's right.
relationships, people. You could talk about everything that didn't go well, but if you're still standing and breathing and you got things happening around you, I think there's a new appreciation for our lives that we may not have had 18 months ago.
Yeah, it's just the basics, right? You start to take the basics for granted. And then when you lose access to the basics, you start realizing, I got to value these things in a way that I've never maybe valued them before.
No doubt, no doubt, no doubt. So let me start at the top, man. When I first saw the
Okay.
news, when it was announced, it was obviously big news, not just in the media business, but in general. Talk to me about where you are now. Why this position? Why now? Where's your head? And what made this the right move for you to obviously join, the most influential hip hop media brand out there, working for Sean Combs, working with I know some of the people there, just some amazing people. But what made this the right move for you right now?
Yeah, I mean, you honestly just nailed all of it. You and I have both been in Black media for a long time. It is an uphill battle trying to carry it, like while you're carrying the world on your shoulder. There's so many headwinds that come with Black media, and so I was looking for a way to win in the space. And ultimately, I believe that Revolt had all of the ingredients required to win. So first and foremost, as you said it, I believe that the future of media is influencer, and we have Sean Diddy Combs, right? So you have one of the most influential people, not in the U.S., literally one of the most influential people in the world. So that was a win for me. We live and exist in the hip hop world. Hip hop is the largest driver of global culture. And so the space that we're playing in is so fertile in terms of the conversations we can have, but to your point, influential in terms of the way that it moves the rest of the world. And then the last piece was just this notion that because Revolt does hip hop, we focus on our target audience is Gen hip hop, Gen Y, Gen Z, which is a diverse audience. What that means is one of the biggest issues that Black owned media companies often run into is getting to scale, right? So if you're going to focus on Black people and get to scale, you have to get like 80% of Black America, right? But when you have a company that can be Black owned, can be rooted in the culture, can be Black at its core, but is inviting everybody to the party, there's an opportunity for scale that doesn't always exist in some of the other Black owned companies. And so, given those things for me, it just felt like we had all of the right ingredients. Also, let's not forget that the brand was called Revolt. It's anchored in a revolutionary platform, and we're in revolutionary times. And so, for me, it just had all of the ingredients needed to succeed. And so, I figured I'd come over here and see what we could do as a collective.
So listen, all you gotta do is take one look at your resume, one look at just look at anything. I mean, I'm looking at all the lists you've been under. So, Crane's 40 under 40, other 40, 40 under 40 list, the Black Enterprises list of top advertising and
Yeah,
marketing
yeah.
executives. This is not just, and I'm going to speak for you. This is not just a
Mhm.
coup for you to have this opportunity to revolt. This is a major win for Revolt to get somebody of your stature, your experience.
Mhm.
Even though you're a young man, I mean, it's not like
Mhm.
you're my age. But you've accomplished a lot on a lot of different platforms
Mhm.
on the path to this particular moment in time. What is it
Mhm.
that you feel uniquely will bring to the table? It's not like Revolt was an unsuccessful brand before you got there, so you didn't come there to maintain the status quo. You came to help elevate the game. What is it that that you're passionate about, or you feel strongly that you will bring to the table to impact and influence Revolt's performance going forward?
Yeah, Steve Jobs, I don't know if you've ever seen it, has a really amazing speech. It's his Stanford commencement speech. And what Steve Jobs says is you can never connect the dots going forwards, but you can always connect the dots going backwards, right? So for me, if we start going backwards, I started out my career post business school at Johnson & Johnson doing global marketing. And so I learned strategy. I learned how to build and scale businesses. I also learned how brands and advertisers think. I left the client side and went to the agency side. I was at Global Hue working under Don Coleman, who for me is an icon in the advertising space. And there, Don had built the first multicultural advertising agency, right? So we were the first place where you could see Black, Latinx, and Asian under one roof. And then under his leadership, and while I was there, we also became the first multicultural agency to win a total market account, right? We were running Jeep total market in the US, period. So we were able to take the cultural insights and truths from these multicultural communities and build them into platforms to move mass business. It's also the place where, you know, to be quite honest, I got tired of making 30-second spots because the world just wanted to ignore them, except the ones that are in the Super Bowl. And so we really started making a push into branded entertainment. And that's when I learned the power of branded entertainment as well. So then you say, I jumped over and went to work for Kathy Hughes, first Black woman to IPO, and Alfred Liggins, and had a phenomenal run there. There, they allowed me to build an agency inside of a media company. So I get to learn and make a bunch of mistakes in terms of how to do that. They also gave me an opportunity that nobody would have given me, which was to run their digital media business. Here I was, 36, 37, never run a digital company before. And they let me run this digital media company of 70 different brands, millions of dollars, et cetera. And so I learned a lot there. And so if you take all of those things, I think the biggest thing that makes me unique is the perspective of having to sat on brand side, agency side, media side, and now I can bring all of those lessons, all of that collective thinking into Revolt. And so you'll see us doing all of those things. We've built a branded content studio. We're pushing forward in a digital space like never before. We have a strategy and a plan that I think is extremely exciting, not just for the company and for our employees, but for the culture and for our community. And so I'm hoping that what I have is just a very distinct and a unique perspective that allows me to connect dots in the ways that maybe some other people can't. And hopefully that'll allow us to be successful as we step into this future we're trying to create.
You know, the two themes and everything you just laid out, which I personally identify with because it echoes a lot of the elements of how I approach my career, is one, you built a career of Black excellence by identifying with Black media brands that, though they're Black brands, they're the best of the Black brands.
Facts.
Like Kathy Hughes, Global Hue was a Black enterprise ad agency a year multiple times because they were not just an excellent agency, but the whole idea of, no, we're the first multicultural agency that's legitimately Black, but can also serve these other audiences in a way that clients can really get their arms around. And
that's right.
That was groundbreaking at the time. And so this whole idea of Black excellence in media is just something I strongly identify with. It's the main thing that's kept me at BE for all these years.
Yeah.
It's hard to get away from a media brand that really speaks to the excellence that you want.
That's right.
Another thing that we have in common, you're more on the advertising, sales, marketing side, me more on the content side, is I'm not a traditionally trained journalist. I didn't get journalism classes. Not when I found out I wanted to be one, it was too late for me to do it. But the way that worked in my favor is that I became someone who was not locked into one way of practicing journalism. It was like, I'm not just a newspaper person or a magazine person or a TV person. And what my boss and friend and our CEO, Butch Grace, once called me, said, you're media agnostic. And how I describe it is I'm a mixed martial artist. I want to learn all the different forms to do this war, this media. Yeah. But how that, I did that early in my career because that's just the way my mind works. But in the latter part of my career, it's made me a lot more valuable because, like you said, whether it's social media, digital media, video, audio, you're just like, which weapon do you want me to use?
I got it. That's right. That's right.
And so that really, I think it does make you uniquely qualified, or anybody uniquely qualified, to be a media leader, because if you can't master and communicate in all those different formats, I just don't know how effective you can be in the current media environment.
Yeah, and what's crazy is, to your point, when you come at these things naturally, you don't often know that you're doing it. So when we did our town hall, I'm big on alignment. And so in our January town hall, we walked through the 2021 strategy and game plan. And I'm just doing what I know to be natural, what I believe to be true. And one of my favorite comments afterwards is one of our employees came to me and said, Detavio, this is not a strategy that you would ever see at a cable network. You're going to have to take some time to help us kind of understand all of the key pieces. I didn't even realize it, right? I'm just doing what I'm doing. To your point, I've learned all of these tools, I've learned all of these weapons. So I'm just trying to figure out the right ones to deploy, not even understanding that, again, that unique perspective is something that I was going to have to bring the rest of the team along with. So they're excited about it all. But yeah, we're not going to be your average cable network anymore. That's definitely not the goal.
Isn't it wonderful? I mean, I've always had a certain degree of joy and freedom, and I'm fortunate to have worked in an environment, whether it was for our late founder Earl Graves, when you know my first part of my career, he was running things, and then of course came up in the business with Butch, to be free. Like they just cared about us achieving the objective. It wasn't on me about, no, this is the way we do things. No, it was like you achieved the objective, and I tell people in a variety of industries, not just media, that if you're in a situation where you're free to accomplish the mission how you want to, and you can use your creativity and your imagination, and you're not limited by this is the way we do it, because especially now in the current environment, things change too fast. The way you did it is obsolete 15 minutes ago. You know,
That's right.
So talk to me about what that's meant to you during the course of your career, and how that's prepared you for today, where everything is changing so rapidly, and every 15 minutes you got to be fluid, not rigid in this environment.
Yeah, so the first piece I'll speak to is just like I'm blessed in the fact that I have not been micromanaged at any point in my career. Don Coleman, Alan Pugh, Rob Chavis, Sybil, those people who saw me early on set me free. I mean, my very first day at Global Hue, my boss, Alan Pugh, looked at me and said, you got the Navy business, write the strategy, come back with some money. We're going to go present in 10 days. That's it. No other guidance, right? Lucky we did, and we probably grew that business like 200% in like the first 2 months. It was crazy. And so as long as I've been able to demonstrate that I can perform, my leaders have given me enough rope to hang myself, which is where I'm happy, right? There's, every leader deserves to be in the business. There's a point in time at which for me, it probably gets annoying. I don't know where it is. It's like, 5%, 10%, 15%, cool. A little bit more than that, like it gets a little tough. And so I'm grateful that whether it was Don, whether it was Alfred and Kathy, or right now, whether it's, Sean, they've all given me the space to kind of figure out who I am as a leader and to guide and move the brands. In terms of being innovative and how we stay up on things, a couple of things. One, we just have to watch hip hop. Hip hop, by its definition, is innovative. Black people, by our definition, is innovative, right? When you look at innovation theory, they talk about how those people who are consistently underserved are most likely to innovate. When the things that work for the masses do not work for me, I'm going to continuously innovate and create new things. And so the first thing we just have to do, say that again.
Because we have to make
That's exactly right.
We assume there's a way.
That's right.
We don't assume there's no way. There has to be a way. We just got to figure it out.
That's exactly right. And if you look at our people and you just say, from Africa, from the second we came from Africa, they destroyed our culture. So when we came here, what do we have to do? Create new culture. Then they would destroy that. And guess what we would do? Create new culture, right? So I truly believe that within Black America, there's this culture of innovation that exists. And so the first thing we have to do is believe that we don't have to have all of the ideas ourselves, right? Revolt does not have to have the idea. We just have to know that we just have to find the right ideas, right? And so keeping our nose to the, keeping our eyes into the streets, watching what people in Black culture are doing, watching what hip hop is doing is one of the ways that we do it. The other thing is like we're super excited about our youth. Young people have always been revolutionary, never accepted or been excited about what they were being handed down from generations above. And so we have ways to study the youth. We've got on the content team, we've got a group we call the Brain Trust, and they are young people who reflect our audience that work at Revolt. We meet with them every 2 weeks. We talk about who they want to see, which shows who they think is hot. We literally don't really do much without them, down to the logo. Which logo do you like, right? But getting the ideas from our young people is a starting place. We also have Revolt Nation, which is a research panel of thousands of people who reflect our audience. And so they too become a place where we can seek out and understand ideas that can potentially happen for innovation. And then the third one is, and again, I just think you just have to have it, is you can't work in a Sean Diddy Combs system and not have an idea machine. And so everything from The agency that we've built to folks on the creative and the production teams, I think we've built quite a bit of a ideation and innovation capability. And so between those three things, we're watching what's happening in the culture, we're talking to the young people, and then we've built our own ideation kind of innovation machine. And between those three things, I believe we'll continuously be able to launch fresh ideas into the marketplace.
I'm going to now shoot to one of my favorite questions to ask in a Beyond the Hype interview, because we live in an age, when I talk to early careerists, people who are either in college or maybe in their first 10 years of their career, maybe first 5 years, and I tell them the job you're being prepared for doesn't exist yet. That's just the way it is, that no matter what you study, no matter what you're doing now, what you're really going to be doing doesn't exist, because that's how fast things are evolving across industries. So as a result, people hear titles, but they don't really know what it means. Like, I could give you 10 CEOs at 10 different companies, and the only thing they have in common is they have the same title. So here's my question. What are you actually paid to do? If I was talking to a 12-year-old and said, this man, Detavio Samuels, is the CEO of Revolt, and he's paid to do this, what is that?
Okay, I'm going to give you two answers. I'm going to give you one that's probably a more buttoned up answer, and I'm going to give you another one that's just probably a little bit more transparent. So the buttoned up answer probably sounds like this. I'm responsible for the overall vision, strategy, definitely the strategy for growth, for the type of content we want to create at a brand called Revolt. Making sure that we deliver profitable growth to our shareholders and stakeholders as a key piece of our business model. Taking care of the Black community is a core piece of our business model. And so in that is making sure that we are building ideas in a way that will give back to our community and help lift them up. That's probably what, most people would say. Oh, I'm also paid to be the face of the brand. I'm also paid to manage investors and shareholders. So those are the types of things that I think most people would say about a CEO. Okay, now what's my personal answer? Brother, I'm learning every single day. What I've realized in the last 3 weeks since the announcement is I was previously COO. Before that, I've been a president for years, like a decade, right? I've been leading and operating businesses for a very long time. I thought the step into the CEO seat was going to be kind of a bit more of the same. And the reaction from the marketplace, the expectations from the marketplace, the challenges and love that I've received for people quickly showed me that, oh, no, this is not the same as just running a business. And so now what I'm realizing is three things. In my past, I've always been super focused on being a business operational leader. So taking care of the company, the employees, and the brand, that was my focus. Now I'm realizing, to your earlier point, when you said Revolt is one of the most influential brands in hip hop, now I'm sitting on top of an influential platform. And so now not only do I have to think about the company, I have to think about the global impact, right? What is it that we want to see change in the world? How do we want to shift culture? That's a new thought for me, to be honest. And so that's one of the things that I'm working on. And then the other thing is, now that I realize that I'm the face of a brand, I've always played the background. I've always made my employees and the brands and all of those things were more important to me than building my own brand. But now I realize that there's such a direct connection to my brand, the success of the company, and the cultural influence that we are having to have, that I also have to get a lot more intentional and strategic about who my brand is and how I represent in the world. And so I'm doing all the things that I think a normal CEO does, but I also just want to be transparent and that I'm learning, brother. I think my evolution in the last 3 weeks has been pretty quick. I'm honestly pretty proud of myself, but I still have years to go to really learn and understand what it really means to be a CEO, specifically a CEO at an influential brand like Revolt. So I'm excited to go on that journey.
What you said about representing yourself or recognizing your responsibility and accountability as a brand beyond doing your job and running the business, it underscores something I think you're a great example of. Again, I've known you of your career for a minute. It's something I often share with mentees and others who seek advice. And I said, most of the most influential people I know, we're not chasing influence. Chasing influence like chasing a butterfly. If you catch it, you kill it. It's more do what you're supposed to do and influence tends to chase you. And at some point you recognize that you have it and you have to do something with it. And so I just love the way you said that now you're CEO and you're realizing there's two things I really have to manage to be effective. Yes, I have to do my job. I have to grow the business. I have to manage teams. I have to to do the stuff you've been doing your whole career, because that's, like you said, technically what you get paid to do. But it goes much broader than that when you look at the accumulated influence. But I see so many people who are literally chasing the influence. And it's no, do your thing.
I love that. Yeah. No, I love that.
I just started reading a book yesterday called Ego is the Enemy. And part of it, I'm in the early parts of the book, but part of that thing is if you're chasing the influence, and in the world of social media, it seems like everybody is, you're probably not going to catch it. But if you do what you're supposed to do, focus on doing and not being. Anyway, I just think you.
No, I love that, and I mean, I think I get excited. Like I'm trying to slow myself down. I think that's so true, because I think you have to ask yourself, if you're chasing influence, why are you chasing it? What I would say is I've been chasing impact my whole career, right? I'm trying to impact lives, the lives of the people who I'm fortunate enough to lead and work with, the lives I'm trying to impact this brand, whatever brand I was given to steward. And to your point, I believe now what's happened is, because you chase impact, now you get influence, because all influence is the ability to impact on a wide scale.
Yeah, I tell people the difference between putting points on the board because you control the scoreboard, or you actually put points on the board. So when you're putting points on the board, you're not paying attention to the scoreboard. The scoreboard is taking care of itself. No, I'm actually doing something to put points on the board. And
that's right.
It's an ongoing theme. I'm heavily into mentorship, and I keep telling my people, are you putting points on the board? Don't worry about what the scoreboard says. If you're doing what you're supposed to do, the scoreboard, the influence will do what it's supposed to do.
That's exactly right. Last thing I'll say there is, I was taught as a young kid, if you take care of the little things, the big things will take care of themselves, right? No, that's all that is.
And they'll get bigger.
Exactly.
So you talked about changing the world, and I want to talk about that. I can't end this conversation without, you can't end any conversation right now without talking about everything that we've been through, continuing going through between the post-George Floyd and social justice issues that we've been dealing with since we've been on these shores. But obviously it's come to a inflection point in the nation right now. And of course, the pandemic and how those things came together. And for this conversation, I want to talk about the other community constituency that you spent your whole career dealing with, in addition to audiences, and is advertisers. The people that rely on us as Black media outlets to be the go-betweens between the audience they say they want to reach and influence, and the money that is our business to serve something to them that helps them achieve their goals in a way that's credible on both sides. We're in this environment where corporations are talking about now, not only diversity and inclusion, but equity. And of course, equity includes, in the Black enterprise world, where are you spending your money? Are you spending with Black media? Yes, it's nice that you made this announcement about $100 million for X and Y, but where is that money going? In the context of your career to date, not just with Revolt, do you see or feel anything different in terms of the advertising media world, let's say pre-2020 and now, and what does that inform in terms of what you expect to accomplish as CEO of Revolt?
Yeah. The world feels drastically different. I don't want to overstate it, because we have so much work to be done still. But when I compare pre-2020, pre-George Floyd to right now, it's like something I've never seen. I've been representing Black culture in spaces that centered whiteness since 2007, right? So a decade plus. It has been the hardest job that I can ever imagine. Whether we were Black agencies or Black media, we often felt invisible, trying to convince people to give us the smallest, like two cents. You know what I mean? Like, you look at the work that Byron Allen is doing right now in media. He's literally asking people to go from spending 1 penny to 2 pennies, and like, right? Why are we begging for 2 pennies, right? The tailwinds that exist against Black-owned media and Black creative companies is incredible. When I was leaving Global Hue, I said, I'm not doing this game anymore. It's too hard. It's too tough. And then I found myself at Urban One, right? And then probably
let's take a point in there that I think, because I've been laboring in the same vineyards you've been laboring in longer than you have been. This is despite our excellence.
1,000%.
Like, we're better at it than the people.
1,000%.
Global Hue was better at it. Black Enterprise is better at it.
1,000%.
And so you're right. You're in there and you're like delivering super excellent with less resources, less people, overperforming, and they still won't double you from 1 penny to 2 pennies.
That's exactly right. And then and they'll give you that 1 penny and hold you accountable to performing like the person they gave 50 cents to,
Yes.
right? So it's like, well, Facebook is doing this. Well, DC Marvel is doing this. I don't have, and my team, like our teams are still performing, and then they just get comfortable with, well, you guys did it for 1 penny, do it again. Right? So it's always been this uphill battle that I just never felt like I would see any reprieve from. I hate the fact that George Floyd was murdered, but when I tell you that the shock that sent through the world has been meaningful for us on the media side. I'll give you a couple of examples. A conversation I had with a Fortune 50 brand or client in March of 2020. Maybe it was May of 2020, and we were talking about COVID, and at the time they were saying like, oh, things are getting better, and people are not as sick anymore, and we're going to have this whole campaign to kind of celebrate. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. That is definitely a perspective that centers whiteness. Like if you talk to Black and Latinx in May, it is not better for us. I mean, now again, it's a year ago. We all know it wasn't better for anybody, but I had to get them to understand like, no, that's not. Fast forward to September of last year. Now that same head of marketing, that same head of media is schooling me. Oh, Detavio, our KPIs and metrics prevent Black-owned media companies from making it on the media plan. It's all a function of systemic racism, and we have to change. We have to make sure that we're investing in brands like yours, right? Same person, 3-4 months later, right? I challenged my sales team to come back with 10 new advertisers. As we were seeing the announcements of people who were going to be putting money into the Black market, I said, come back with 10 new advertisers. I think historically the most amount of advertisers they had done in a year was 14. In that short period, they came back with almost 35, right? And so I'm watching, there are advertisers, there are brands who care, there are brands who are trying to figure it out. And so this moment feels drastically different. Revolt this year should probably blow our performance goals out of the water on the revenue side. And it's a function of how well the brand is performing, its influence and culture, and the fact that for the first time, there are a lot of brands and advertisers who see us and are willing to relax those things that have previously kept us from making it on the plan. We're not Nielsen rated. There's a bunch of brands right now who get, this is not a game where you are buying, if you're buying Revolt, you are not just buying impressions. This is impressions plus. I would actually reverse it. Buying Revolt, I would say buying Black media is a revolutionary act. Buying Revolt is a social impact buy that comes with impressions, right? We're doing real work here. And so excited that there are brands who can get that messaging today, because 2 years ago, it would have been impossible.
So as we wind down our conversation, and I always wind down with a future focus. And I've had this conversation with everybody from banking executives to community leaders to actors and directors. One of the things I love about Beyond the Hype, I've been at BE for now 30 plus years, but normally it's just entrepreneurship, personal finance, and career stuff, which is still our bread and butter. We're a business publisher.
Yeah, and best in the world at it.
Yeah, but I love Beyond the Hype because I can have conversations with anybody. I've had comedians on, because it's all about Black excellence, and we're all playing along the same scorecard. So I always ask this question about the future, and you said what practically everybody has said, that this is a different moment. But I interviewed for Beyond the Hype Karen Horn over at Warner Media, and she raised this interesting conversation about, we've been at forks in the road before as Black people. Like when we could have went left and went right. We either could go back to the status quo, like everybody's awake for a while, then they go back to the status quo, or we can really do something about systemic racism, like not just do a short-term Band-Aid thing and then go back to the way it used to be. And this is the first time in my adult life as a Black man that I'm getting more people feeling like this could be the chance for us to really do something, to take the right fork in the road this time, that we didn't take after Rodney King, that we didn't take. Like we've seen this movie before
100 times.
What is your feeling, both in general and in terms of the media business, about whether this is kind of a 2-year window of sensitivity and then back to the status quo of systemic racism, or that there is a real, not that we're going to solve, 400 years of injustice in the next 5 years, but there's a real turning point in our industry and in the nation to say, no, this time we're going to go against about the systemic issues, not just the symptoms that we've been coping with over the years.
Yeah, so I'll answer it in two ways. First and foremost, you're 100% right in that this can be a true inflection point and a true inflection moment that we never go back to what was. And so I'm super excited about that. When it first happened, I believed that we would maybe have 12 months to 18 months. And so a big reason I was pushing my sales team was to say, you guys have to go out there and get people while this is hot. We have to try to lock them into longer term contracts, because in 12 months or 18 months, when everybody gets tired of this and it goes away, we still need that revenue base to succeed and achieve our goals. I now believe we have at least 4 years in us. So what is that driven by? Many of the brands who made announcements in terms of investment in Black culture and the Black community have made commitments for at least 3 years, 3 to 5 years, right? So you know that for the next 3 to 5 years, there's a handful of brands that will continuously pour into this marketplace. Hopefully more join them, but you know that that exists. The other thing is Joe Biden and Kamala in the office. So when President Obama was in office, I didn't actually realize it until Trump won. When Trump took over, the way brands and advertisers played the game was significantly different than the way they played the game when Obama was in office. I think he gave them a freedom, and this isn't political, I'm just saying this is what I saw factually. Right. He gave them an outlet and permission to not care. And so many of the things that have been put in place to show that these folks cared about multicultural businesses, I watched them disintegrate within the first year of Trump's presidency. Mm-hmm. So now you have Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and I think a couple of things. I think that Joe Biden is a white man who's convinced that his legacy is going to be about uplifting marginalized and disenfranchised communities. I think he could very easily only be a one-term president. And so when you only have one term, you don't care because you're not trying to get reelected. So you're looser than anybody else would. And then there's a Black woman who is the VP who is holding him and everybody else accountable. And so we know that we've got at least that combination in office for 4 years. So between the long-term commitments from companies, between having a white man who's trying to create a legacy about uplifting others, and a Black woman in the VP seat, I think we have at least 4 years to really make this moment a movement for life.
But to something you foreshadowed earlier, you referenced Byron Allen, and Byron Allen's really putting the heat on General Motors in particular, and you could broaden it to corporate America in general, to say all these pledges are nice, but I'm not seeing no changes over here. Where's that money rolling to? It speaks to the fact that we can't kind of relax and just wait for it to happen. That we all can't do what Byron Allen is doing, and maybe we all shouldn't, but we all need to hold companies accountable, hold the president and the vice president accountable, hold people accountable. So it's not just, I hate what happened to George Floyd, but let's go back to business as usual.
Facts. Yeah, no, I think for people like you and I, like we are accountable in this moment, right? People like you and I are accountable for making this not a moment, but a movement. And the only way that we make this a movement that lasts forever is to do what you're saying. And I love it because I'm seeing Black people, whether they are 12 years old, 20 years old, or CEOs who are unapologetic, fed up, and fearless. And so we have to continue to call the industry out and the brands out and everybody else who has been contributing to this problem, whether they knew it or not. It is up to us, and we are accountable for making sure that we ring that bell and shine that light on that darkness.
So let me wrap up by just talking to Detavio, not the CEO, not the marketing maven, the advertising excelsior performer, but the man. Because we've all, we just had our Black Enterprise Health and Wellness Summit, and a panel of therapists, including Jay Barnett, I don't know if you know Jay, but said that this was their first crisis where the things that they were trying to help their clients through was things they were going through too. Like, no, we're all getting hit by this. And so I've been careful to have this conversation with everybody on Beyond the Hype, because when all is said and done, particularly as a person of color, particularly as a Black man, we are being as emotionally and psychologically impacted as, you know, this is not something that's happening over there and we're just kind of
Yeah.
observing it. How are you? And what is your feeling, your general feeling now, and your personal outlook going forward for how you feel about being who you are in America, and what are your hopes, if you will, for the year to come for yourself?
Yeah, that's such a deep question, brother. I would describe 2020 for me as the best of times and the worst of times. From the worst of times, of course, you have TD Jakes just had a sermon on Sunday, and he talked about like everything is noisy. The world is noisy, the country's noisy, your house is noisy, right? 2020, those things were all very true for me. I lost my father in February of 2020. My wife and I, when you look at all of those kind of major stressors that people talk about, moving, new job, loss of life, we literally had one of those every single month from January through June. And so my life, my personal life was on fire. When you look at the job that I was asked to do, I came into this incredible company in a moment of intense evolution. I have not yet met 90% of my like the employees that I work with in person. And so there was just a lot of funk, right? That said, there was so much good. So much good. You know, I moved to LA. I started out the pandemic in New York, on Wall Street, which was the epicenter. We went from being like a bustling part of town to a zombie apocalypse. We were stranded in this, you know, it wasn't small, but it's not big because it's New York. Stranded in this apartment, feeling like we couldn't leave. Now I'm in LA with a lot more space, and it's healthier for me. New York, I mean, LA has parks and pools. I'm swimming every single day, which just has me feeling healthier and operating healthier. I have this phenomenal job, you know, and now I look to my boss, Tark, Sean Combs are now mentors, people I get to learn from every day. Every time you talk to Sean Combs, it's like he puts a battery in your back. It makes you feel like you can run through the walls and accomplish anything, right? So in those ways, like it's been very, very good. And so I've just been super focused on the positive that's happening. Same thing in 2021. You know, I think the Revolt brand feels like it's hotter than it's ever felt before. The momentum that we have is incredible, and there's so much good. And then the last thing that I'll just say is I'm always I'm blessed in that I feel like I'm blessed in that I'm a godly man, and so I look to God, not man or the world, for my peace. And so given that, I've had consistent peace despite all the craziness, despite all the wildness, despite all the noise. I've had consistent peace throughout, because I'm very anchored, and where I know my future is determined. And so I appreciate you asking that. It's a really dope question. Oh, one more thing I did, and I got a therapist. So back in November, December, I got a therapist for the first time, an amazing Black woman, who just, you know, helps me think through things. And so doing all the things that I can on a personal level.
You're
Again?
all of my notes, bro.
Okay.
I have a standing weekly appointment with my therapist. I mean, I've had it for a long time. People are like, why? I was like, now you know why.
Exactly.
I'm also a man of faith, and you talked about finding out during the course of the year. I was like, not only was I reminded by everything that happened that God is the source of my peace, He's also the source of my provision.
Absolutely.
With all that economic disruption, I was never not provided for, no matter what got taken away. And I posted this on Facebook about a month and a half ago. Everything I thought I lost in the first half of the first, say, 6 months of 2020 has been restored and then some in the second half of 2020 and going into 2021 with more greater expectations to come. Doesn't mean I didn't lose. It doesn't mean I didn't suffer.
Yeah.
You talked about death and sickness and economic issues and instability and relationship challenges. But despite all of that,
that's right.
I know where my peace and my provision comes from. And
that's right.
When you talk about therapy and faith, man, I'm totally with you on that, bro.
And the last one I'll give you, because I love the way you just summarize it, like my peace, my provision, and now what I'm seeing is my positioning, right? Like I'm watching God, who has put me in this corner, I mean, in this company, in this moment, with this global icon, with this brand called Revolt. And you know what I mean? Like I'm watching my peace is good, my provision is good, and my positioning is probably like it's never ever been before. So I'm grateful.
No doubt, no doubt. And listen, man, I am grateful that again you took the time to
Yes,
have
sir.
this conversation. Thank you for being my guest on Beyond the Hype, man. And I'm gonna be, I'll be paying attention and watching you and praying for you and cheering for you. So, but just thank you so much for taking this time, man.
Thank you for having me. We're gonna get you on Revolt Black News just so you and I can stay connected, having conversations.
Well, I'm there, bro. I'm there. You know where to find me.
I do. All right, King. Much love.
All right. This is Alfred Edmond Jr., Senior VP, Executive Editor at Large at Black Enterprise, and you've been listening to the latest edition of Beyond the Hype. Take care, and we'll see you next time.